if your goal is to quit your day job, but you're invested in the BRRRR strategy, that's pretty much like a person who puts ketchup all over their eggs and grits and all that stuff. It's disgusting, it makes no sense. But if you're interested in retiring, quitting your day job in the next 12, let's say 24 months, I have a better strategy for you. Just take a look. All right, now I'm gonna offend you, all right? If you're that person who eats eggs and grits with a whole bunch of ketchup, hey, do your thing. If you like the BRRRR strategy and you like to use your money to find a property, fix it up, incur 6 months of holding costs, having to pay for that hard money loan, having to pay for insurance and taxes and utilities and not receiving any income, then hey, if it floats your boat, then by all means continue to do it. However, if you're looking to say goodbye to the 9 to 5, I do have a better strategy for you. And that strategy is buy and hold multi-units. So in this video, I'm going to share with you pretty much the pros and cons of both strategies and I guess pose an argument why the latter is much better. Okay, so let's get into it. So first thing, what is the BRRRR strategy? Well, it's an acronym. It stands for buy, renovate or rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So you're actually buying a distressed property. Let's say it's a foreclosed home, right? Or REO, real estate owned property. You're buying it from the bank and you acquire it typically with private money. You might use hard money to acquire the property. So when you acquire the property with hard money, there's a lot of points involved. And the interest rate is in the double digits at times. Of course, there are private lenders, so the interest rates change. It depends on the lender. However, just to give you an average, it's upwards of 10%. I've used hard money before on 4 deals. 12% and 15% were the interest rates that I paid. And the point is 1% of the money that you borrow. So the points that I actually paid was, it ranged from 2 points to 4 points. Okay, so that's additional money you have to bring at closing to use a hard money lender's money. So if I was buying a property for $100,000, and if they charged me 4 points, now I have to bring an additional $4,000 to the closing table. So that's the first downside in regards to the BRRRR strategy. When you're using financing, typically it's a tad bit more expensive. It's more costly, especially at the closing table, right? However, you have to understand the lender's perspective, the hard money lender's perspective. They're lending money on a distressed asset. It's beat up. It's not yielding any cash flow. So of course, with that risk comes reward, a higher interest rate that you have to pay to the hard money lender. Now, when you're buying a multifamily property that's already in decent shape, that's called a yield play. In other words, it's yielding cash flow day one of closing. When you're buying that single family property that's distressed using hard money, using the BRRRR strategy, it's not cash flowing a single dollar day one of closing. It may cash flow maybe 6 months once the repairs are completed and once the refinance is done. So you have holding costs. You have to pay for the insurance, the taxes, utilities. You have to pay that hard money lender every single month, that expensive, let's say 12% interest rate. And it could be interest only. So you're paying all this money without having one single dollar come in. And guess what? When you're doing these repairs, you also got to front the contractor money, right? Because the hard money lender at times, they typically reimburse you the money that you've already outlaid. Meaning, if you want to start with the construction, let's say typically when you're doing a renovation, you start off with the demolition, right? And you also start with buying materials. Most hard money lenders won't front you that money. So you got to come out of pocket to finance those things, to get the demolition, trash out the place and get new materials in. And then the hard money lender will reimburse you. So you can see it's a lot of costs and it's mounting up. And it's riskier because it's completely vacant. When you're buying properties that need a lot of work, that's called a value add. You have to add a lot of value before you can actually reap the rewards of it. So when you're doing value adds, it could be valuable at the end once you do the refinance and have a tenant in there. But when you're doing full renovations, there's a lot of unexpected. And I've dealt with them all, such as there's issues with there's mold in the crawl space, right? Or you put a hole in the wall and you realize later all the electrical needs updated. Let's say the permit guy came by and he inspected and says, oh, well, yep, this is old knob and tube, you gotta get all this removed. It's just mounting expenses. It's the unknown, okay? Now let's switch over a little bit to multifamily and the benefits there. So with multifamily properties, as I shared earlier, you're actually buying a property and it's going to cash flow day one of closing. So I'm not saying buying a multifamily property that's completely vacant. No, you want to buy these properties with tenants already in them. And you know it's a safer bet, a safer investment, hence the word yield play. It's going to yield cash flow at closing because it has tenants in there, and you can pretty much be safe to assume that there's not going to be much repairs needed because there's tenants in there. Right? So they won't be in there if the property was distressed. However, I'm not saying that you buy a property sight unseen. I'm not saying that you buy a property without doing a great inspection either. So you actually do those things. You perform your proper due diligence. But what I am sharing is it is a safer investment from the outset. Before you get under contract and do the due diligence, you can pretty much be, safely assume that it's a property that's in decent shape, okay? Now, the other benefits with multifamily in comparison to the BRRRR strategy, right, is that the financing is much more sweeter, right? Hard money, as I shared, that can be upwards of 10%, several points. When we buy a multifamily, you don't have to worry about paying 4 points on the mortgage. You don't have to worry about paying an interest rate of 10% either. Don't get me wrong, the mortgages might be a tad bit higher than residential mortgages. I'm talking about commercial mortgages. They might be a tad bit more expensive than residential because with residential, you might be able to get a 30-year mortgage, let's say 5% interest rate. Whenever you're watching this video, interest rates always change, so don't quote me on that. But let's say it's 5% amortized over 30 years. Amortized meaning the time it takes to pay down the mortgage. But with commercial, it might be 5.25%, right? A little bit higher. And the amortization period might not be 30 years, it might be 20 years, okay? So your debt service, your monthly mortgage payment will be a tad bit higher. However, it's considerably less than what you're gonna be paying towards hard money. Considerably less. And guess what? You're not paying that mortgage out of pocket because if you're buying the property right with tenants in them, then guess what? You're cash flowing day one of closing. Yes, you heard it right. Now, with multifamily, it's so much easier to use leverage as well. And we talk about this a little bit in our training, the different creative financing tools. So I'm not going to go over all of it in this YouTube video. So if you want to learn more, just check the links below to get access to a free training of how to use creative financing to acquire multi-units, whether it's in your backyard or out of state and in the most profitable markets. But with multi-unit investing, especially with the financing, you have so many different options. One option is sitting right here in front of you. These things. Creative financing tools, right? And you can use these tools to get into the property, right? And it's just one tool. You probably heard other tools as well. You probably heard of seller financing. You probably heard of master lease options. You probably heard of wraparound mortgages. You probably heard of many other tools, private money, not necessarily hard money lenders, but other types of private money lenders, private equity partners. There's many of them that you can use to get yourself in the door. And then when you focus on improving the value of the property, you're making it worth more, you can get out the door. So that's one of the main difference makers I want to share there too. With the BRRRR strategy, how do you increase the value? Renovations. Once the renovations are done, you put a tenant in there, then you do a cash out refinance, right? But with multifamily, how do you increase the value? You can do renovations too. You can make it worth more, right? You can add some hot sizzle stuff into that unit to make it worth more. But guess what else you can do? You can force the appreciation. You can increase the revenue, decrease the expense. So by you improving the performance of the asset, you're making the asset worth a ton more. And guess what? You don't have to hold the property for months on end where you're leaking money out of pocket because you have to pay for taxes and insurance and utilities and hard money payments and so forth like you do with the BRRRR strategy. But with multifamily, you're already getting income. The tenants are already paying you, right? While you're increasing the performance. You're improving the performance to increase the value of the property. So you can see, by you acquiring multi-units, instead of waiting 6 months to finish a repair on a property to finally get a check, you can get a multifamily property, make sure it's stabilized, let's say within 3 to 6 months, and you can buy more and more properties on repeat, like the cash flow cycle. So if you're interested in learning more about the cash flow cycle, that's one of our easy templates that many of our students use. And Daniel, you can just show our students, you can just show a couple videos and clips of the students getting results. So if you want to be like these students and people that we've worked with to be able to get more results, then all you have to do, my friend, is just check the link below to learn more. Because what we have a free training that shows you how to use creative financing tools to acquire multis in the most profitable markets. All right, so I look forward to seeing you in the training. And as always, guys, this is to your success. Continue to earn passively, live passionately. Peace.